o'clock hour, lots to get to, including Travis Roeder, SicEm365.com football analyst, and he writes in the premium section leading up to, past, at the end of the game, and then follow-ups once he watches everything. Travis, was there a point in the first half that what you saw offensively was like you were very disappointed in it? And I'm not saying it was 2020, but did you start to wonder if it was somewhat similar?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for having me on real quick. And I wanted to say, if y'all are ever in a day where you don't necessarily have the energy in the studio, maybe you ought to listen to that announcer, that clip that y'all just played. He's calling the Baylor-Texas State game. It's like a 40-point game, and he was going nuts for those touchdowns. That was pretty crazy. But yeah, as to the offense, no, I mean, obviously not even close to 2020. And really more specifically to your question, no. I never really, obviously Baylor had a couple of drives stall out. But it was very clear to me watching this game that if Baylor wanted to win this game by 70, they could have. What I saw in this game was that they identified a couple of weak areas from the BYU game, and they said, look, we have got to get better at these before we enter conference play. And notably, that was like, just cleaning things up front in the run game that's not just the offensive line, but offensive line plus tight ends. And then really for the running backs, I think the running backs left a lot of yards on the field against BYU. And so I think that's why you saw them kind of hammer Richard Reese hard. Like, we're going to get these young guys ready to play because we've got to have all these backs that we have at a level that they need to be for conference play. And so to me, it was really, Baylor had some struggles, but I think we saw at the end of the first half when they win that 2-minute drill and they kind of marched easily down the field, 96-yard drive in a couple minutes. That was them like really trying. And I don't mean trying as if they weren't trying otherwise. That was like the full playbook kind of available to them there. I think what they were really just trying to do is iron out some weak areas as opposed to trying to beat Texas State by 70 points.
Travis, you are a little bit rosier on their skill position guys than I am, and I'm coming around on the running backs. The wide receivers, though, Travis, cannot win routes. They can't. They're not doing it. What has to happen?
Okay. Paul, this is funny. We'll have to make this a weekly segment between you and I where we argue about the wide receivers. But, I just think, again, they're young, and I don't know necessarily if it's, I wouldn't agree with your statement that they can't win on routes. What I think really what it takes for young guys is they have all the physical ability in the world. Maybe they're doing well in practice, and especially for young guys who never really got pressed in high school, and they were always more physically dominant than the people they were facing in high school or, in practice. All of a sudden they get a physical corner who maybe he's not as athletic as them, but he knows how to play on the line of scrimmage. And all of a sudden, usually Blake Chapin's expecting the wide receiver to be at a certain area, 2 beats after the snap, but the wide receiver struggling to beat press coverage or something like that. So I think that's all correctable. These guys have the athleticism to do it. I just think it's going to take time. I think, again, this wide receiver core is going to look totally different 4 weeks from now than they're going to look this month because it just takes time for them to grow. They have the dudes to do it. They'll get there. It's just a matter of whether they get there Iowa State this week or whether it's more like November. That could really alter their win total. But I think by the end of the season, they're going to get there.
What did you think of the way that Blake Chapin bounced back?
I thought he had a tremendous game. Blake, I think the main area he struggled against BYU was, I think he just had a couple of plays where he just really messed up. And, I'm sure he would tell you the same thing. But I think really the other part of it was because those wide receivers were struggling to beat press coverage and get to their spots. There were a lot of instances where when guys weren't in where he expected them to be, and to be clear, this is just kind of my speculation based off what I saw. I'm not 100% on this, but it seemed like once the rhythm of the play got thrown off, we saw him scramble outside of the pocket a lot or just take a sack. And I think what we saw against Texas State was much more often, I think, of a big play he had to Richard Reese when he threw to Richard down the sideline. That was a play where Baylor was trying to take a shot downfield. It was one of those kind of big, true play-action deep shots. But the protection wasn't great. And instead of Chapin trying to escape the pocket or just kind of falling down and letting the defensive line get him, he stepped up in the pocket and looked towards one of his shorter routes and just got the ball out and ended up being a big play. So I really liked what I saw from him. A couple of bad snaps, so that's going to happen for any college quarterback. I thought all in all, he was one of Baylor's best players in that game.
Do you think we've even seen what they will show, or at least want to try and show against Iowa State?
No, not at all. To beat Iowa State, again, I don't know if I've said this on the show before, but Iowa State is a team to where if you can reliably execute 10 plays in a row, you're going to score. And so, but the thing is Iowa State, that's a really smart defensive game plan for them because most college offenses cannot execute 10 plays in a row without an incompletion or, a bad throw or a drop or a blown block from their offensive lineman, any kind of mistake. And so what I think you're going to see Baylor do against Iowa State that we haven't seen in any other game yet is kind of really show their fully developed, like early down, 1st and 10, straight up, just drop back pass, have Chapin drop back and hit somebody for a slant for 7 yards. That's something they really haven't shown yet this year. And I think a lot of it is because they're holding some things back for conference play. Again, this is a long season. And as I've said many times on here before, coaches are not building for September. They're building for October and November. And so I think you saw them hold some things back that we're really going to see fully fleshed out and used against Iowa State. Again, if they wanted to beat Texas State by 70, they could have, and it would have been by opening things up more in the pass game. But they're going to have to be reliable and solid in the pass game, especially on early downs to beat Iowa State.
Of the injuries right now, what is most concerning to you in terms of who might not be available? I guess there's Tay McWilliams, Cole Maxwell. It does seem like Ben Sims is on more of the shorter list. And who else am I missing here? Khalil Keith and Monterey. Yeah, what do you kind of make of that injury situation at the moment?
Well, Khalil's been a massive loss all season. Mm-hmm. He was one of Baylor's probably 5 or 6 best players on that team last year and would have been one of their 5 or 6 best players this year. So that's been a tough one all year. Randa said it's just going to be a while till he's back. So it's not really worth thinking about him at this point. But, man, it'd be nice to have him on this offensive line right now. I do think while Baylor is really, really deep on the defensive line, Cole Maxwell has been tremendous this year. He's one of Baylor's starting defensive ends. And really what Baylor's been able to do to everyone they've been playing for the past 6, 7, 8 games is just fully kind of dominate and stop their run game and force them to be one-dimensional in the pass game. And Cole is probably their best run defender. So that'll be something to watch against Iowa State as far as, with TJ Franklin as Cole's replacement, but he's probably not as good in, as a run stopper. TJ's a great player. I thought he was probably Baylor's best player overall in that entire game against Texas State. But going up to Ames, I think you want to be able to make this Iowa State offense one-dimensional, and Cole would have been a big part of that. So him not being there hurt. And just real quickly with Monterey, I thought Monterey was going to be Baylor's best offensive weapon this fall. So anytime you don't have your best offensive weapon, that hurts. He brings a big playability that I'm not sure if anybody else on this offense has right now. Really want to have him back, and so I'm very happy that it sounds like Aranda said he's in that group of if things go right this week, he's going to play, as opposed to on the outside looking in.
How much would it have helped to hit the Presley? Was it Presley on the deep post? It was just got tripped up. I mean, just to do it, to just feel it, see it, make it, and do it.
That's a great point, Smokey. I said when I rewatched that play, and what I thought of was I remember early on with Gary and Taekwon last year that it just felt like for about the first 3 or 4 games that they just weren't quite on the same page on those post routes. It's not the receiver doesn't run to the same spot of the field every time. What the quarterback has to kind of do is read the leverage of where that corner is on the hip of the wide receiver, and then he throws the ball to where it's most advantageous for the receiver to get it. And so I think what you're seeing here is this kind of this clear picture of this is what it looks like when a receiver and a quarterback are learning how each other play. Because there's only so many times you can rep that, and especially only in a live game situation. And so that ball I thought was really, really good from Chapin, but maybe just a little bit off compared to where Hal was expecting it, because I think you saw him kind of have to cut up field as opposed to just continuing to run across field. So whether that's on Hal not doing things right or whether Chapin, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that they need to get on the same page, because that outlet over the top is what is going to take Baylor to the next level offensively. Because once you consistently hit that ball, that's what keeps that safety back and double covering that receiver as opposed to just being able to leave a corner single up on Hal. So I think that's a great point, Smokey, because that is a key play for the rest of Baylor's season. If they continue to misfire on those deep post routes, I think you're going to see teams be able to load up more against the run. But if they can start hitting those, that's what really opens up this offense.
I have seen what appear to be wide receivers, I don't know if they're running free, but we're about to see one of the best in the country in Xavier Hutchinson, who's a big target, dynamic player. What will Baylor do to try to help maybe make sure he doesn't just have one of those massive games?
Oh, man, that's a great question. I think he's going to have a big game. He's one of those guys who's so good that it's kind of more of a matter of containing him as opposed to fully stopping him. I hope I have to eat my words and he has like 3 catches for 13 yards or something after Saturday. That'd be great. But he's just a flat-out dude. He's going to have 7, 8, 9, 10 catches in this game. It's just a matter of whether he's able to dominate the critical moments. What you have seen Iowa State do with Xavier Hutchinson this year, and again, I think he's pretty clearly the best wide receiver in the Big 12 right now. If it's 3rd and 7, he's just one of those dudes right now that they're throwing it to him, and it just doesn't matter. He's dominating whoever is across him. So again, I think it's more about containing him. And what that looks like really, I think, for a defensive coordinator is you want to make it to where when at least half the time the quarterback is looking for him, the read is just not quite clear. And so he gets a little bit hesitant because, again, like in big situations there's going to be a handful of plays this game where the guy just makes an unbelievable catch and you have to tip your cap to him. But you just don't want to make anything easy for him. Make him earn it. And he'll definitely earn some of it. But I think they're going to have their eyes on him. They're going to do some bracket coverage and just make him earn it because you can't let him just kind of go 1v1 and dominate versus defensive backs all day.
Iowa State likes to run the ball, but they're throwing the ball more. Baylor's front obviously has been killing people in the running game, although Brigham Young was now it really was Jaron Hall with what he did with his legs. So how does Iowa State attack Baylor's defense?
Oh, man, I think that is probably the question of the week. Their new quarterback, I kind of went out on a limb this offseason saying I thought that Hunter Deckers would be better than Brock Purdy. I think they kind of got stunted by Purdy's lack of growth. He's one of those quarterbacks who seems basically the exact same as a freshman as he was as a senior. Deckers just looks like he has it all. Big arm. He's got a beautiful lefty stroke. I just want to tell any Baylor fans listening, any college football fans listening, do not underestimate Iowa State. They are every bit one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the Big 12 right now. And it's because of what they're doing offensively. Their quarterback, Deckers, is really able to spread the ball around. He makes some throws that literally just make your jaw drop, very advanced for a college quarterback and especially for a young kid. So I very much expect, Smokey, and you alluded to it, they're going to run the ball a little bit, just to keep Baylor honest. But this is a game to where if they're getting up into the 20s and potentially into the 30s, it's because they're playing spread ball and just letting Deckers and their wide receivers kind of eat out in space. So I think Baylor's answer for how they play when Iowa State plays that spread style is really the key to the game. Because if it looks anything like the first half against Texas State this past week, where they were just kind of going up and down the field with short passes, Baylor's not going to live long playing that way. So my guess is they have something up their sleeve, something they didn't want to show against Iowa State this past week, against Texas State, because they knew they were going to use it against Xavier Hutchinson and Iowa State. So that is definitely the storyline to watch for this upcoming game.
Thank you, Travis. Great stuff. Appreciate it. Travis Roeder, SicEm365.com football analyst with us Mondays, a little after 5, and also on game days, our pregame, with his keys to the game that he brings to the table. Travis Roeder, SicEm365.com. We will hear from Michelle